This is Critical Critique Pause on Point. Today we're going to be doing a video on a familiar face. I mean, if we keep doing videos on Anime Matt, we might get done for targeted harassment. So you might have to be careful.
Oh, don't say that. We still have like a trilogy of slime videos to do.
We do. So we're going to be doing a video on Overlord and how Overlord tells a story.
Well,
how old is
it
this
has
video?
a comic, it has a book, so maybe moving forward.
Yeah, maybe he might break out of his echo chamber involving anime. Maybe he might actually talk about the light novel. Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Do you maybe believe the web novel?
So yeah, how old is this video, Ellie? When did this come out?
This should have came out during the time of the second season, so it's a bit old, but
bit old. It's a bit old, but
you know
we
how
like
over the story, how Overlord tells a story hasn't changed.
and we like Overlord.
Yeah.
Overlord's yeah,
It's nice.
Overlord's good. It's good. It's a good show. It's good series. It's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Got a fourth season. Probably.
Apparently. Maybe, yeah. Great. So, yeah, without any further ado, let's see what Anime Matt's opinions are.
Oh god, he's getting worse.
Overlord has been one of those anime I've been following for quite some time now. Watching it from its Season 1 release back in 2015, the second season which premiered earlier this year, and now, of course, the ongoing third season. I've been quite the avid.
So I was wrong.
Okay.
So it's
So
season 3.
Season. Start of the food season.
Yeah.
Well, damn, you're wrong. We're going to have to scrap the video now.
No.
Oh, God. Rip. So
spoilers.
my history with Overlord is actually quite interesting because I kind of got into it because of Anime Outsiders because they kept singing Overlord's praises and I had skipped. I believe it was like either the first season or the second season. I'd skipped I think both seasons initially because I wasn't too interested at the beginning. But then I just sort of started watching the first season out of boredom. I didn't have anything else to watch, and then I ended up spending the whole day watching Overlord, and it was a good day. It was a really good time. Like it was a fun time to marathon that shit. It was really good.
So I got also a funny history. It's basically I watched the anime, like first 2 or 3 episodes, and then I thought, this feels like a light novel adaptation. I like this, but I feel that like it's skipping a lot of details and monologues and all that shit. So I thought I'm gonna read it, and then I read it all, and then now I'm waiting for Sasuga Neil for the updates of the translation from the Chinese. Also, funny thing. That's how I discovered Pulse on Point Joe. He did reaction videos back then.
Nice.
And I was bored and I watched some collage of people reacting, and he stood out for being smarter than everybody else. Everybody is like, "Whoa, how cool!" And he says, "Wow, look at that angle of that fight, the camera shots, the composition.
Holy shit!
This
is actually more complex than it looks. What? yeah.
That's very interesting." So I followed him, and that's how I discovered Pulse on Point before he was the smarty academic he is now.
He's smarty man. Yeah. No, it's good. It's good stuff. So yeah, we've.
And Lolly, what is your story history with Overlord?
I've only watched the first season and half of the second season. The first season I watched with some friends that were into it because we decided to group watch it. And second season I was kind of following on my own. That's all right.
Yeah, I think in terms of the anime itself, I reckon like it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not like I would say it's fantastic. I think that, as Ali pointed out, there's a lot of stuff that you miss out from the adaptation, right? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
also change a lot of the timeline of events, and because in the light novel a lot of events happen at the same time simultaneously, and they
Yeah,
swap
what
things around and
and
jump back and forth. Because I've read a bit of Volume 1. I think I have Volume 1 and 2 on Book Corner, and I still have to read them. Yeah. In the first bit, it's very sort of like there's two events happening, and you're being told the events simultaneously, even though like the timeline is out of sync. So, and they don't really portray that in the anime. It's more a linear timescale of this is the first event, this is the next, this is what happens after so and so.
yeah,
so.
Overlord. Just on the light novels, it's interesting because the light novels never tell you when things happen. So, the invasion of Karn Village, I believe it's third season material, but bear with me. The Karn Village gets invaded. That's you read that first. The village gets attacked. Then you see Ainz going to the two big monster villains and basically killing one and says, "You work for me now." And you learn afterwards that the events are reversed. So in novels, it's a mystery who attacked the village. But you find out at the moment Ainz kills a big ogre, and then that ogre was the ogre that attacked the village in the previous book or the first chapter. And in the anime, it's in order, so it's kind of boring.
Yeah. So you do lose a little bit of the charm from the adaptation, but like I said, still pretty good. Still pretty good. So yeah,
read the novels. It's better. Those are better.
Read the manga. No. I actually don't know how the manga is for Overlord. I know there is a manga adaptation.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how
it looks
quality is
pretty,
like.
but you go read the novel.
yeah. Learn to read. But anyway, let's continue.
Viewer. Yet, I've only talked about this show once on my channel, and it wasn't a particularly kind video. But throughout all of this, I still heavily enjoy this show and want to talk about its unique way it presents the narrative.
Can I just say the fucking design work in Overlord is fantastic. I love the fucking military knight maid. Like we just saw it. Like I love that design. It's so good. There's a lot of designs in Overlord that are just like, that's good.
They really hit that sweet spot.
Like not even from like a Lude's perspective, right? Because obviously I care about that quite a bit. But from just a general like aesthetic design perspective, right? There's a lot of really interesting shit going on with some of the characters.
I buy the MMO setting basically in the characters.
Yeah, like you could like the idea of it being like a military mate. And she has a fucking assault rifle, right? And that you see in a number of shots, right? And it's like that doesn't make sense because it's like fantasy world. But then you realize, oh wait, it's based off an MMO. An MMO probably has like goofy paid
gunner class.
Yeah, or a gunner class, right? Or like goofy paid shit, like turning bows and arrows into guns or whatever. Like there are different justifications you could have, right? Like even though you don't see guns in the wider world, right? It's possible that they could have been a cash shop item or something because we've seen using.
Weren't the maids something that was designed by the other guild members?
Yes, but I'm pretty sure that they gave them equipment that was actual equipment. I think it could be wrong on that, but I believe that they outfitted the maids with actual in-game equipment, which would make sense because you have to program the maids like specifically with it. Fuck! Can you imagine? Can you imagine an MMO where you can program your own shit? Can you just fucking how many weebs would get into programming just on that basis?
We already know the answer of that because of Skyrim modding, so...
Yeah, exactly! Like, can you imagine if it was an MMO, Fallout 76 wasn't shit, is what I'm getting at.
What's interesting, and I'm not sure whether or not either of you two know this, but the author for Overlord actually played in the very early WoW servers in the era when Blizzard first dropped that. He's like one of the few Japanese players on those early servers.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that last time, a few times Overlord's come up, as well as his D&D connections with his stories and stuff as well. But yeah, I love the overall design aesthetic of Overlord. I just wanted to bring that up because that it just kind of sparked that in my head where I'm like, oh yeah. It's
And the inhabitants of this world also have good designs, despite being very normal.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, let's continue.
But first, can we just admit that the weird lizard sex arc was just so out of place? Like, come on guys, we all like this show, but I still stand by what I said in my original video that shit is super weird.
What's wrong? What's wrong, Matt?
It's love, okay?
Wrong?
It's beautiful. It's weird, scaly love.
What's wrong, Matt? You don't like the lizards having the snoo. What's?
I mean, it's not like that came out of left field. They were building up to the fact that they had to.
They were building up the fact that
it was
they
also
had a relationship.
Joke.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were building up the fact that they were getting into a relationship, and you know what the natural fucking course of that is in a normal human-related story, right? Like
the timing of that joke was fucking amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it was really good.
It's really better than in the novel. Nah, never mind. But no, really, the joke goes on in the light novels where Ein says, "I need to give the Mare sex education."
Oh, that's great. But yeah, no, it's. I can understand how a normie like Matt would find it weird, right? I can get from the normie perspective. I can understand, but I'm just like, come on, dude, come on. You can't tell me you didn't crack a smile and be like, oh. God damn it. But anyway, let's keep going.
Sorry, just had to get that out of my system. Like I said, today I want to talk about the unique way the Overlord series tells a narrative, and see how this formula is best used to further our enjoyment of the narrative. So first and foremost, let me give a quick synopsis for those of you who may have not seen the show yet. Overlord is an isekai show where a teenager from our world gets teleported.
Alright. Mistake one. It's not a teenager.
Add one point to the wrong chart.
Yeah, it's also not necessarily our world because granted this is in the novels, but they mention the world that Ainz lives in. You know,
gas masked because the environment is ruined. They live in dystopian where people die in companies
shit.
and replaced by kicking the corpse away.
It's the meme of the guy with the gas mask being like, "I miss the internet," and someone draws a meme.
Yeah, it's the cyberpunk dystopia. And another thing that was mentioned was like the game that he sucks himself in wasn't even considered particularly great. It was just kind of like everything they had. Super depressing.
Yeah, so, yeah, add +1 to the wrong tally, cause fucking Christ. Like, what I hate about this is that it's the same with what I was arguing with Pedantic on Twitter about, well, not arguing because they didn't respond, but like ranting about Astolfo and being trans and shit. All it takes is some basic level Googling and wiki reading. Just rock the wiki. Like, all you have to do to make sure you're not wrong is just fucking look it up. It's not even like we're asking for people like, you know, Pedantic or Manime Matt to do like fucking Joe levels of like research and citing and bullshit, right? We're just asking for like the basic level of, you know, I should probably make sure what I'm saying is correct before I say it in a video. You know, like
Yeah,
is
if I'm gonna study a subject, why don't we,
like,
why don't I put effort into it?
is it so hard to ask for that? You know, is it so hard to just be like, look, can you just look it up? Like, just double check. Even if you think you're correct, just double check it. Just make sure. You know, like,
Because he sure
on.
doesn't act like a teenager, I think.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he talks a lot about middle management, middle managing again. Oh, I knew this from my job, etc.
I wouldn't say that he acts like a. I mean, stuff like the boob grab really early on, right? But the thing is like, it makes sense because he's trying to like figure shit out. He's just realized he's coming to grips with what's going on, and he's trying to figure it out. And also the fact that it's like, if he's middle management, like, we can assume that, probably in his dystopian cyberpunk world, having a wife and kids and sex and shit is probably not high on the priority. So it kind of makes sense that he'd be a bit of a perv, but it's kind of sad that he's in a body where he can't utilize the fact that he's a bit of a perv.
Well, you could always got magic, so don't worry about it.
Magic dingus. So yeah,
Welcome to the Bone Zone.
Welcome to the Bone Zone. So yeah, my main thing here is just fucking do some research, guys. Like, come on, come on. It's just fuck. But anyway, let's see if we can add more to that counter as we go along.
Into his game world, where his character has been min-maxed and was basically the top player around and had countless top NPCs.
So, mistake
number two,
and
number two.
And 3.
Within like the space of 2 seconds, he's wrong again.
So
it's so dense.
So the mistake number 2 is the character isn't min-maxed. It's for roleplay. This character is made for roleplay, not for min-maxing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's specifically stated that his character was like the best of the best. Or
no,
like
he
particularly
also
overpowered.
He says he's middling in his own guild.
That's why he had, when he was fighting Shroudtier, he had to use the cash items, like burn through like 5 or 6 of them,
and use equipment from the other guild members.
Yeah, he's not like
me.
I think where Matt is getting confused here is that, yes, he's overpowered in comparison to everything else in the world at this given point, right? Like, when you look at how him and his... well, here's the thing, right? His attendants are actually stronger than him, as we saw with, the fight, right?
Base level, they are stronger, but of course, Ainz can do a lot of things.
Of course, he's smarter, right? I mean, yeah. So, it's like... Yeah, he had to use both cheating and also his, smarts, right? Because he is intelligent, right? So, in comparison to what everything else in the world, him and his attendants are overpowered, right? In comparison to what they have faced off against so far within the story, right? Only talking about, like, anime material, not light novel material, because we haven't got that.
Well, I know, but...
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of the material that is available, in the context of what we're talking about, they are considered overpowered. However, in the actual, like, context of the game that he was in, not so much. There were clearly other people that were stronger than him. There was clearly, like, other guild members that were stronger than him.
Yeah, Touch Me...
ton of that.
Touch Me was the best player on the server.
So... And also, if I remember correctly reading the first chapter, wasn't their guild ranked number 3?
Yeah, basically. Also, not
like
top.
they weren't ranked, like, were they number 3? I can't remember if it was specifically 3rd or if it was like 4th or 5th. It was like they were like in the top 10, right? They weren't like number 1, but they were like somewhere in like the top maybe 15 to 20 or something.
Yeah, right? Basically they just they made themselves a niche by allowing only non-human players.
Yeah, it was
And-
like a thing. Yeah,
And they made just an impenetrable base, so just loads of guilds just crashed on the way on the rocks of their base, and they just could hold on. But I also recall something that in their heyday they were like in the top 5 or something, but in the
Yeah,
later
but-
days they were like in the top 20. But that's my
because
old memory.
I think because as the game was starting to die out, people were leaving, and it was like, yeah, they started to drop down or something like that. Yeah, would have to source check that and look into it, but I believe that's true.
But
So yeah.
long story short, not the top player of the top guilds of this min-max
No.
character.
No, yeah, that's completely wrong. So yeah, let's continue. Let's see if we can get like a couple of seconds without him being wrong again.
Sees at his disposal. Yet, when he gets teleported into this world, strangely enough, the entire game world changes as well, only bringing his guild hall, his NPCs, and of course, himself, who, by the way, now is a lich.
I object to calling this world the game world.
Yeah, it's.
It's a real
You know,
world.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, it's not. Overlord's not the same as something like SAO, right?
Yeah.
Because in SAO, they are transported to. Well, not transported, they are inside the game, right? They are trapped inside the game. In Overlord, he has been transported to a fantasy world that somewhat works similar to how his game did, however, it is a bit different, right? Because the landscape is different. Like, things are not where they were in the game, right?
So I'll basically spoil something minor, and that is that basically the magic that Ainz knows, there are other players that came before Ainz.
Oh yeah, I've heard
And
about this.
those players taught the magic they use today. So it's not that the world is the game world. Basically, other players before Ainz made it more like the game because they taught things from what they know.
I believe. Yeah, I'm remembering now. There's something along the
You
lines
got
of
the
that.
4 kings and the 12s. Was it the four kings and the 12 heroes and etc.?
Yeah, there's been like generations of players, quote unquote, right, transported to this world that have brought stuff with them, right, and shaped the world in their wake or something along those lines, right? So yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, again, it's sad because a lot of the stuff that Manamat's like, I can see how he's come to this conclusion.
Well,
right?
but it's basically just assumptions. It's all assumptions.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, I can see how he's made the assumption, right? I can understand how he's connected the dots together, but he's just wrong. He's just so wrong. Even with the information provided, right? Like, in the current material, right? Like, it's still wrong. Like, it's like, oh, it's like, come on, man.
But Lolly, what's the anime? So did you watch so far? Did you know new English? Did you knew that other players came before Ainz?
I was told that the person I initially watched this with, he's really into this series, so he actually follows up on the novel. So he's the one who actually sold this series to me, pretty much, because I just kind of ignored it the first time around, because I was like, oh, not really interested in like isekai fantasy stuff. And then he's like, oh no, it does all these really neat things. And the person who made the novel or wrote the novels actually played an MMO, so I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, what I like about Overlord is it really captures the feeling of losing friends.
Being in the guild, yeah.
Losing friends along the way.
There's this good image that kind of summarizes Ainz's experience with the guild, where somebody put two images together, one of this guild from World of Warcraft in 2005, and then the other in 2013, and it's like he's all alone.
Yeah, it's basically just almost all game characters and the guild leaders just on one knee, sitting down, leaning on one knee, and it's all his guild members around him. It's full fun and happy days, and then all those years later,
And then life happens.
he's
Yeah.
on one knee, kneeling, leaning on one knee, and he's all alone, and that feeling of loss, that lost friendships
There's a
gone.
lot, there is a lot going on in Overlord. It's very it's very dense. I guess is a good way to put it. It's very there's a lot of layers to it. It's good stuff. So anyway,
Heinz is a
let's
tragic
continue.
character.
Oh, it is. He's very much is. It's in more ways than one. So yeah, let's keep going.
I believe. Sorry if I'm wrong, I'm not too great at D&D terms.
Yeah,
What?
What?
Keep going.
It's because he said that he's been turned into a lich, which is like inaccurate because in the game he was always a lich. So it's kind of like it's kind of redundant. It's kind of redundant to be like, well, he turned into a lich. Well, yeah, he was a lich in the game. So yeah, he has been turned into a lich from his real world self into a lich, but it's like a redundant statement.
Oh,
he structured that sentence really weird.
His
Yeah,
actual.
it's not necessarily that he's wrong. It's just that it's unnecessary information.
His actual class is an Overlord.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
In their new world, they quickly discovered just how overpowered they are. And the non-player computers are no longer NPCs, but instead real, living people? Creatures? I'm not entirely sure.
And we
Yeah,
love them.
funny.
sorry. The fucking they're so good. Like they're really good characters, and that's one of the things about Overlord that a lot of people tend to not understand is it's a very character-driven series, right? You have to be in it for the characters and the world, right? It's not like Ainz himself is not necessarily the driving force behind the whole thing. Like you kind of
It's
you
a
have
world.
to attach.
It's
Yeah, you have to attach.
Look how
yeah,
the
you have
world
to-
reacts to Ainz.
Yeah, it's how the world reacts to Ainz, and it's how all of the characters around Ainz and such as well are affected by his actions, and how the attendants all have their own little personalities and all this other stuff, and how they also interact with the world, as we saw with the butler, right, later on, right, and how they interact with the world and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's one of the because when I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't like Overlord, I'm not into it, a lot of the complaints seem to come from the fact that they don't get that it is a character-driven show, not a plot-driven show necessarily, right? Like it's not like there is, of course, the end goal for Ainz where he wants to, reunite with his guild members, he wants to get home, he wants to figure out what's going on in the world, he wants to eventually take over the world. It's been slowly, he doesn't want to, but that's kind of, he's kind of going that direction unintentionally, right? Like, so there is like that kind of plot line. However, it's not necessarily the main driving factor because there's other characters going on and they all have their own different motivations. You have the samurai dude who wants to beat Stella because Stella wrecked his shit and he got all depressed, and there he's not depressed because he chipped the nail of someone else and now he thinks he can do it.
You can
right?
brain and Sheltier.
Brain and Shelter, yeah, I get the names wrong all the time. It's the autism. Brain and Shelter, yeah. So you have even in that you have a little personal character story.
Yeah,
right?
and Renner, Princess Renner, the psychopath.
The psychopath who's doing psychopathic shit in the background, but also, putting on the face of the hero princess type thing, right? There's again, that's one of the things with Overlord. It's very complex, it's very dense, there's a lot going on that you have to kind of keep an eye on. And a lot of people seem to kind of miss that. They seem to look at it from a basic level, rather than seeing all these different layers.
Well, of course, it's not wrong to enjoy other anime types, but
Oh yeah, I'm not. If you don't like Overlord and it's not for you, it's not for you, right? Like, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just mentioning that one of the main complaints I get from people is just like, oh, there's nothing going on, the plot's not progressing fast enough. Oh, this is blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's not what it's about. it's not that type of show. I mean, it's kind of like it's like if someone criticized like a moe show for not having action scenes, if that makes any sense, right? It's like, it's not that kind of, like, a slice of life moe show is not the kind of show that you would expect to have like a mecha fight, unless it's like a comedy type thing, right?
yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm getting at, where it's like there are different types of shows for different people, and it's interesting how different people kind of react with those shows. But yeah, let's continue.
But they all clearly have wills of their own now. Luckily, they are all extremely loyal to our main character, but we quickly find out that they are capable of changing over time, which in some situations is beneficial, but in others, not so much.
Well, this is a complete mischaracterization of what happened.
Yeah, it's a complete mischaracterization of what happened, and also the fact that an interesting, again, another layer to Overlord is the fact that Ainz is playing the bit because he knows that if he doesn't play the bit, then his attendants are going to start to be a bit.
Well, it's not even that. Shaltier was brainwashed. She didn't change
Yeah, Shaltier was
in
brainwashed
instance.
in that fight, yeah. Yeah, and that's true, too. Yeah. Shaltier
It's
was
minor,
brainwashed.
but he's showing footage that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Oh, he showed Calcutus, and that is very relevant, but I think that you could show Sebastian instead of Shaltier.
Yeah, I think Sebastian's arc was a much better example of that, honestly. And yeah, I agree there. And it's another case of him kind of like misinterpreting and not understanding certain aspects. Because again, like, he mentions the idea of, they're loyal to him, right? And it's like, yes, they are. But part of that is Ainz is afraid of them possibly not ending up being as loyal as, they appear, right? Because again, you saw how much work it took to fucking take Shaltier down. Can you imagine if they all rebelled against him? So he has to play the part, right? So, again, layers. But let's continue.
See, the thing that makes Overlord's storytelling so intriguing is that when it comes to brute force, our main characters are unmatched. They could easily brute force their way through every single situation. Yet instead, they intentionally take a back seat and try to take control of the world through their wits, only relying on brute force in a couple of choice situations. This is interesting because the show preys on our hopes for a totally ridiculous power fantasy, and it does deliver, but often it makes us wait, building up our hopes slowly and letting us get to know all the characters in the narrative better before putting them all through the ringer.
I disagree with multiple things, but even if there is no big action where Ainz creates a black hole and sucks up a high-ranking angel, the moment where Ainz says, "Oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing," yeah, go over there, and it totally works, that is a goddamn power fantasy.
It's great.
When Ainz enters the arena and exits the arena with the biggest prize possible by doing nothing, it's not that doing nothing is the doing nothing is the power fantasy, and not if he destroyed the entire arena with a nuke and that's how he won, and that would be boring. But doing nothing and getting the prize, that's some good ass Ainz moments.
That's some good shit. And yeah, I agree with that. I think that it's, again, it comes down to like what I was saying before. It's like, it's not that kind of show. It's more complex than that, right? There's more to it than just flashy, bang, bang, right? Like, sure, you've got a little bit of flashy, bang, bang, but it's not all flashy, bang, bang, right? there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of characters interacting with each other. There's a lot of conspiracy happening between some characters talking to other characters having things to do with other characters, and so, motivations and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do want to caution against calling this show too complex, because it isn't really that complex.
It's not. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm possibly hyping it up more than it deserves, but in terms of like, I guess like on a scale of most shows, right? It's a bit more complex than most shows.
Yeah, it has more characters, and all those characters do things, and that makes it a more complex web of actions. But I don't think it's really more complex in its ideas.
It's not this super deep thing. Yeah, I'm not. I think I need to clarify that. I'm not saying that it's this massive fucking masterpiece, super deep, like literary fucking.
It has a lot of cogs. It has a lot of cogs in the machine, and the machine works perfect. Pretty good. It runs smooth, and that's very impressive, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's more what I'm getting at. Yeah, that's that kind of thing. But anyway, let's continue.
Once again, look at the weird lizard sex arc. We spend multiple episodes watching.
Why does he think the entire arc is about the lizard sex?
It's a joke.
Is there something that you'd like to tell us?
He's kink shaming himself because he feels bad about being turned on by hot lizard action.
Hot. Well, actually, it wouldn't be hot because they're cold-blooded. It would be cold.
Well, no.
Cold. Lukewarm lizard action.
The lizard going to the heat, so it should be fine.
It's put on the heat lamp first. It's like fucking a dead body.
God.
How do you know?
Oh god.
Let's not go into that. I don't want to incriminate myself.
Has your username has something to do with it?
Oh no.
My username has nothing to do with it. There's nothing necro related in it.
I'm having flashbacks to something from ages ago where we were talking about I was in a podcast talking about Monster Musume, and I know this is really off topic, but we were talking about the season where Monster Musume was coming up in a seasonal overview, and someone mentioned that they didn't understand how to fuck the snake, and we all just fucking lost our shit. It was hilarious. I think that's clipped somewhere because it was so fucking funny. Because he's like, "How do you bang the snake lady?" Oh god, it was hilarious. But yeah, no, I just wanted to joke a little bit there because it's kind of like, I don't know why, because that arc, there was more going on in that arc than just the lizard sex, man. Like, come on, I get it's a joke, but it's like, god.
Lizards fuck to let us know and learn about their fetishes. Sorry, am I going too far with this joke? I would stop,
a little bit.
But technically speaking, I'm not even wrong. Either way, after we get to know each of the characters, Ainz Al Ghul, i.e. our main character, walks up and more or less shows the difference in strength between himself and the lizards. But instead of crushing them, he lets them all have a small chance and only kills a couple of the characters and even revives a few. I guess she's also into necrophilia. Kinky little thing.
Oh,
no, but on a much more serious note,
Okay, Matt, don't do that fucking wispy, fucking seductive voice ever again. Because that was fucking terrifying in my headset. Do not do that again.
That bad.
Oh,
I've heard worse.
I've heard worse. You need this.
I do not want Manime Matt fucking singing sweet, sweet seductive thoughts into my ears. No.
Say in seduction.
Ugh.
By the way, Lolly, did you know that the lich you see in the image right now is... do you remember when Ainz had to bring some guild members to Sheltier to show her and fight? Because basically the adventurer Mare bashed his head in is this lich. And you can see it because half of his face is bashed in. So Ainz basically made experimental liches out of those adventurers.
Oh, that's interesting.
He calls himself something 43, and that's basically experiment number 43.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Alright, let's continue.
They
continue.
use fear and intimidation to
Yeah, basically just nothing is left. Well, not nothing is left, but you can see actions from previous stories affect future ones.
Again,
Wow.
there's a lot of cogs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cogs. A lot of cogs are spinning. It's very, very interesting to watch the cogs spin. So it's
get what they want out of the village, rather than just crushing them, which quite honestly is an option. You see, this leads to a much more entertaining narrative. If every scene was this ridiculous power fantasy scene, they would slowly lose their effect. Instead, we are introduced to many minor characters who are fairly weak but wish to become stronger. So the show puts these characters to the test. Whether that's putting their lives on the line or overcoming one's fears, it develops the characters further, making us empathetic to them and actually wanting to root for them. That is, of course, until our main character arrives.
It's almost like the show is a character-driven show.
Yeah, I don't
like
think.
the show is a show.
Yeah, I don't think he described anything unique. Something that is unique to Overlord.
Yeah,
He's described something that is unique to good storytelling.
He has described the absolutely obvious to anyone with half a brain.
Here. I will actually summarize what he said in one sentence that has been said for like several centuries. Brevity is the soul of lit.
Whoa.
That's basically what he's describing right now. He's describing nuanced storytelling.
I mean, I could make a comparison to Log Horizon. No, not Log Horizon, sorry. That also has a lot of cogs. What I want to mention is Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere. That has so many characters with so
that
many
has
details.
A incredibly expansive novel universe because it's one of those things where that was a novel series that's been going on since with the City arc, which was published in '98 roughly. And it's this whole very expansive universe that as I recall, Kawakami originally started it to be a tabletop setting.
Yeah, and I've read part of the concept art book for the anime, and basically it goes to the detail of describing the life jackets on ships and the fashion in the town and how many houses there are on one of the ships of Musashi. And he mentioned in the show the agricultural capacity of a given region. So it's pretty damn detailed.
Yeah.
That's some deep shit. But anyway, yeah.
Concept art books are pretty fun to look up. I read through like the Gundam ones all the time, and then like the BattleTech source books go over things like that, like how the individual mechanics of the mechs work, and it's neat.
Yeah, I recommend the Log Horizon just because you can see how the lifeboat jackets of the ships work.
You mean Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere?
Yeah, you see the Log Horizon again.
Nah, Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere.
Oh no.
Log Horizon is a guide on how to evade taxes.
Yeah.
It's hippity hoppity.
Taxes are my property.
Yeah,
Taxation is theft. The taxation is theft.
Oh no! Alright, we gotta keep going before we go down this rabbit hole. Let's continue.
You see, Ainz usually plays the villain in most of these arcs, showing up and crushing anything that irritates him. But the crazy thing is that this is actually happening to characters we have learned to like.
See, he also sometimes just doesn't show up. Or at least his involvement with the arc is not, like, massive involvement, right? It's usually, like,
sometimes he just
mildly.
goes with the flow, completely unsure and constantly panicking about if what he's doing is correct or he isn't ruining one of the Mirror schemes.
Hmm.
Constantly
Yeah.
afraid and panicking.
That's one of the things that you kind of miss in the TV show, that's in the novels for Overlord, is just how out of his element Ainz is, because he's having to play the role of this evil, mastermind, but he kind of doesn't know what the fuck he's doing 9 times out of 10. So he's constantly panicking and kind of paranoid.
Yeah.
But he does have his moments where suddenly, you think, oh, he's always panicking, he's always unsure, and it always works fine. And then sometimes he shows he has a plan and he works it out, and it's brilliant. And he goes, yeah, I wanted to do that all along. This was my plan. And then you go to his internal monologue and you go, all right. So now I'm going to read. He's bluffing this whole thing. Oh, good thing. This plan worked of mine. Damn, he thought of a plan that really worked.
Yeah. All right. It's pretty good. So let's continue.
Most of the time. Thus, the sudden change in tides as Ainz shows up and crushes all of those who get in his way is almost jarring. But then again, as I previously mentioned, further juxtaposes the difference in power between Ainz and all other characters in the show, making him quite honestly one of the best power fantasy characters I've seen built. The formula is simple but very effective. Even in my most hated arc, I couldn't help but smile when Ainz showed up for the first time and gave them all his ultimatum. I could only think, now these lizards are really gonna get fucked.
Oh, fucking Christ. God.
Thank you guys for watching.
All right.
Done. Well, are we done? Because we've got a minute left.
It's patron. Thank you. Buy my shit.
Man, he got it on almost exactly 5 minutes minus the
anime
Patreon
merch.
shit. It's pretty good. So, all right. I guess, man, how do we cap this one off? I think, wrong man bad, obviously, because he's wrong on a number of things in this. But yeah.
Well, to be fair, what he is wrong about isn't really important.
Yeah. I will say this: he got a lot of very individual details. I agree with his main point in the sense that he is describing how you tell a good story, not necessarily how Overlord alone tells a decent story, because something being character driven is something that you often hear in creative writing as being more ideal rather than something just being plot or just completely plot driven, like they're just being dragged along. Yeah. And so, like, he kind of doesn't really tell how Overlord tells a story, just how competent media tells the story.
Yeah,
there seems to be a running trend with Matt where he will present a video one way and then the actual video's content will be something completely different to what you're expecting.
Well, not completely different, but basically...
Well, somewhat tangentially related, but at the same time, kind of like... It's like kind of like one.
He's kind of like splitting anime where he has a half of a point to make, but doesn't fully think it out, but still's like, oh, I need to put out a video for my patrons.
Yeah, it's the same as like when we covered his isekai video with Excel World. It's like it seemed like he just wanted an excuse to talk about Excel World, and rather than just make a fucking Excel World video, he has to make it this. What if isekai was completely changed by the fact that this show, like, I feel I'm getting similar vibes from this video where he's like how Overlord tells a story, and he's using Overlord as a sort of like pivot point to be able to make a point about like storytelling as a whole, when all he should have done was just make a video about storytelling as a whole using Overlord and perhaps maybe like 2 or 3 other shows as examples, right?
Yeah, that's basically he said Overlord has a good story. That's it. I mean, what I mentioned about Overlord never mentioning really what time something takes place. That's not something that all stories do. It's different, of course, for the anime where everything is in chronological order. So yeah. And
I think that works better for a television format to have things be in chronological order. Like it
That's
makes
true.
it flow better.
It makes a bit more sense, and it makes as you said, it makes it flow better, and it's easier to understand than if you're jumping. You're constantly cutting around the place. So I can understand why they made that change, right? For like the adaptation. I do agree with Ellie that you lose a little bit, right? That.
Absolutely read the novels. They are it's a very different experience.
Yeah, Lolly,
you lose quite a bit.
Lolly, did you read by any chance the latest novel, like 13? The Holy Kingdom.
Yet. Not yet. I've only read through like 2 or 3 volumes at this point.
Then I'll keep it general. In the latest novel, there is a point where time isn't mentioned. How much time passes isn't mentioned, and it's interesting because it could be 1 month, or it could be 5 years. And that's interesting because if it's 5 years, then it's completely what you can.
A lot can happen in 5 years,
or it could be 1 month.
Yeah,
and both are equally possible.
All right, so I guess to round off the video, I reckon it's not the worst Wrong Man Bad video we've watched.
This isn't the disaster piece that is his Yojo Senki video. Yojo Senkai as he called it.
This is not the worst from him, but it still has similar issues to what he usually
I'd be mean to say it's kind of basic and boring.
It's a bit basic, a little bit basic, but normie, right? It's normie content for normies, but.
And I think we did this as the alternative to the Fire Force video. That must have been incredibly dry.
That must have been really bad, yeah.
Like I said, I am led to believe he's going to talk about how flames are of symbolic importance to the characters in the show. But instead it's about fire in anime is kind of bad. Then One Punch Man came, and that's the only anime ever that did it okay.
Oh,
and
no,
then
he doesn't understand how flames work. It also shows that he doesn't watch anime.
And then, of course, then he says, a fire force through innovation, not explained or mentioned otherwise, Fire Force is able to make fire for the first time ever in anime look good.
Fire Force put stick together. Fire Force make fire.